And the shadow is it's basically a movement,
messianic movement.
Messianic movement. You want to talk about it?
No. I'm really tired, so I prefer that you talk.
A religious movement of, like, in the mid 80s, there was a group of people that started sharing these visions through dreams, um, and they call these visions the shadow. And the shadow, through the dreams, would teach them how to write and would teach them how to heal their communities. So the people who were caught by the shadow through their dreams, they would learn how they would become healers afterwards. So the shadow is basically this very difficult thing to circumscribe, and it's an experience that is very difficult to describe for someone who didn't experience it like us, but heard other people describing, because it's very internal. Um, and it's kind of related, I think, to the war, and it was also a movement that created social disturbances. So the people who went through those experiences, they usually were expelled from their villages by their own families because their behavior would become extremely disruptive, and they would be, like, very difficult to handle. So they left their villages and they joined together in this other place of this. Also, like, you hear in this film, talking about this woman, Tombik Tenanachi. She was the leader of this movement. So she gathered all these people in her house, and they lived together for a while, and they provided for education for the kids and so on. So it's also connected to this kind of policy. Yeah.
And because people here don't know enough of the history, so can you very briefly give us the colonial history? Very quickly tell us how the anti-colonial movement took shape in Guinea-Bissau.
Okay. I will do my best. Okay, so Guinea-Bissau was a former Portuguese colony, but had never been a settlement colony. Let's say that Portugal kept their colonies even after the Second World War. So let's say that the colonial war started in 61 in Angola, and then in 63 to Mozambique, or 62 in Mozambique and 63 in Guinea-Bissau. And so the anti-colonial movement was led by Amilcar Cabral, and he was a very charismatic anti-colonial leader, was very important in the 60s and 70s. He was murdered before the end of the war, but he was like a kind of like inspiration, even today, like to the African diasporas in Europe, and he's a very charismatic leader. And he led this anti-colonial war, this liberation movement. And and Guinea-Bissau was the only former Portuguese colony who declared the independence before the Carnation Revolution. That's actually, we are celebrating it today. The Carnation Revolution is the 25th of April. And Guinea-Bissau and the Carnation Revolution was in 74 in Portugal, and
became very disturbed and very preoccupied with this, and saw them as a threat. And many of them were put into jail, and then the movement sort of dispersed. And all these healers, they stopped working in a group, and they went back to their villages, and they became much more quiet and discreet.
Discreet, yeah.
So this has nothing to do with the anti-colonial war.
In a sense, it is, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's better that you want I talk. Yeah. Okay, there is one of the first persons who studied this Messianic movement, the shadow. His name was Jung, and in